Hi, and welcome to Hanaz Writers Podcast. My name's Charlotte, and I work as a Year 2 teacher in a primary school in London. If you haven't heard any podcasts from Hanaz Writers before, then have a listen on their YouTube and Spotify channels. You can search for them on both websites, and you can start listening to the podcasts that they have available. In this podcast, I'm going to talk about poems and the different types of literary structures that are found and used in poems. Now, poems are great literary pieces. They're interesting, and some people have a knack for them, while others might struggle with them. There are lots of different rules, rhymes, and rhythms to be followed, depending on which type of poem that you want to write or that you want to create. At school, one of the easy poems that we teach children or students is the shape poem. And these poems are written about an object or a thing, and the words are written around the shape into the form of that object or thing. So, for example, let's say you want to write a poem about a leaf, and you want to write about the leaf during the autumn term because lots of things happen to the leaf at that time. Things change, the leaf changes itself, and you want to write a special poem about it. So, first you write your poem out. Then you find your template of a leaf. It can be any kind of leaf that you want, any leaf that you like. You trace around the outline of the leaf or you print it off, whatever you need, onto your paper with a pencil. And then you write your poem around the outline of the leaf. And you got to make sure that what you write, each sentence covers the whole outline of the poem. Then once you're ready, you've written it, your whole poem, and you've checked that everything fits within the outline, you can rub out the leaf outline and your words just stay there. So it's kind of a cool little magic trick. And then your words are written in the shape of that leaf, whatever that leaf was. So then your poem is the shape of the leaf, and you read it, and then you read about your whatever your poem was about. So if you're writing about the leaf changing colour, the leaf becoming different and going through changes in the autumn term, whatever sentences you'd written, maybe you'd written 2 or 3 sentences about it and you've written it in the shape of the leaf, then it looks exactly like the leaf from afar. And it's a really cool, I like shape poems, they're really cool because you can basically write about anything, any subject, as long as you've written it in the shape of that thing. So you could do about a bicycle, you could make a poem about a teacup. I saw one time. There was also a poem about a cat in the shape of a cat. And it's really cool because they don't necessarily have to have rhyming words. They don't necessarily have to follow too many, like normal restrictions on poetry. So they're kind of like free verses as well. So your sentences, as long as it's about that item, you can write it and add it in. Now, poems follow lots of different literary rules, and shape poems are quite easy because they don't necessarily have to rhyme. They're kind of like free verses, as I said, and they can be written about any object that you want. You can use any different type of object, and you can use any kind of literary structure. If you want to have rhyming sentences, then you can put that into your poem. And these sentences and these things that you write about the object helps the reader to bring to life and visualize what you want to get across, especially if you're writing a fun poem about something, or you're writing something that might be a little bit more abstract. So what are some of the literary structures that poets can use in their poems? I'm going to talk about a few of them and list them below, and then I'm going to talk about why a poet may use them in their structure, in their poems, why they're using these particular structures. But remember that this is just my own thoughts and my own musings on the subject. So don't quote me on this. This is not something that is definite or for sure. Yeah, so don't add, oh, Charlotte said in your assignments or essays or whatever. I'm just mainly using basically my own knowledge of poetry, my own knowledge of these literary structures, and try to talk through them and give my own analytical thoughts and opinions about it. So yeah, it's just for fun, so don't take it so seriously. So some literary features that can be found in poems are similes, of course, Poets often use similes as a figure of speech in their poems. And they do this because they want to compare one thing to another so that the reader can better understand what the poet is trying to say or to describe things for them. So, for example, a simile can be, he was as strong as an ox. Now, this does not mean that he was an ox or he is an ox, but rather helps the reader to picture just how strong this person is. He was strong enough to do stuff or do something amazing with the same strength that an ox has. So it doesn't mean that he was actually an ox, but he had the strength of an ox. So he's liking and comparing the man to the ox. Another literary structure that there's a feature that is found is metaphors. And this is very like a simile. It's a figure of speech, but it doesn't actually compare two things. It doesn't use the word like or as or was like. It's basically saying that something is one other thing. It describes something by saying that one thing is another thing. So, for example, a metaphor about life, for example, is life is a highway. And that's quite a common metaphor that's used from time to time. Now, this does not literally mean that life is a highway or a road that you can get on by driving and, get in a car and drive along the road and, oh, this is life. Rather, it's like comparing life to a road and saying it is like a long journey. It's a long road and you're traveling along your road and it's your journey. And, as you travel along, you may encounter good times, like singing to a fun song or driving through fun things. Or you might have bad times where you get stuck in traffic jams or you have a wheel puncture, those kind of things. Or even boring times along the road where the road is just the same and it goes on without any ups or downs. And this metaphor is quite nice. It's used to explain to the reader what the poet is trying to say. Also, it gives the reader an idea to kind of liken what life is like, especially as life is kind of one of those abstract things. So I would say metaphors and similes are very good for abstract stuff. If the reader can't get their thoughts across, they can use similes and metaphors to help people kind of understand what they're trying to get across. A few more metaphors. There is one, about how precious a child is to someone. And you can use the metaphor for you are the apple of my eye or they are the apple of their eye. Again, it doesn't mean that the person does have is the apple of someone's eye. It just means that they are very important to that person. Another metaphor is you have a heart of gold. Again, doesn't literally mean that someone has a heart of gold. They wouldn't be able to survive by that. But it means that the person is kind and caring person and they want to help others because they have a heart like gold, basically. Okay, moving on to another literary feature. Another one is personification. And this is when the writer gives a non-human thing or an inanimate object a human quality. For example, the trees wave their branches at her. This doesn't mean that the trees decided to move their branches and wave them like a person would wave at someone, just to say hi or whatever. It kind of means that the wind was blowing hard enough to move the tree branches so that it looked like they were waving to this person. Another personification phrase is the car groaned as it made its way up the hill. Now, again, this doesn't mean that the car was groaning like a person might do, as they go up a hill that's a bit tough and you're like, oh, God. It just means that the car was making a strange noise as it was going up the hill. Maybe it means that you infer the car is old and the car is kind of rusty and it's taking its time as it goes up the hill because it needs that that time. Let's see. Another literary feature that we have, or people use in their poems, is onomatopoeia. And this is the sound of a word that makes the sound of the word. Put it simply, the words sound as they should do. For example, I'll give you a few. Hiss, boom, snap, pow, kapow. These kind of onomatopoeic words. And poets use these types of words to create a particular sound or give a fun rhyme or a rhythm to their poem. And one example where you can find lots of onomatopoeia is in Dr. Seuss's stories. They're actually a great fun and poetic pieces, and he actually manages to get in as much onomatopoeic words as he could in each of his stories. So yeah, if you read a Dr. Seuss story, look out for those onomatopoeic words and sounds in his writing. Read it out loud and just, have fun with it, because they're actually his books are actually a lot of fun to read out loud. And you can make make the story fun, and it gives a different feeling to them when read in your head or when read out loud. There's just a different feel to them. Another literary feature that poets use is alliteration. And this is when the same letter or sound starts the beginning of the words and they're repeated after each other. So, for example, if you wanted to have words beginning with B, you could have big brave bears. So you have 3 words with starting with the same letter, one after the other. There's also tough talk. And also, tongue twisters are quite good, like she sells seashells by the seashore. Again, this is something that poets use in their writing to bring about the sounds, rhythms, and rhymes of their poem. So when a person does read them out loud, there's a certain timing to follow, which then makes the poem flow, and that's basically what it's about. Tongue twisters are really great. They use alliteration all the time, and they're just great fun to say. If you're going to try and test yourself, you can say these poems quickly to yourself. And then it's like a test on how well you can speak and how well you can say these words. A few of the British tongue twisters that we have, or for tongue twisters in English language, is Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. If you ever want to say that whole rhyme, I'd say Google it, find the whole thing and say it out loud to yourself. It's a great fun tongue twister. And as I mentioned earlier on, she sells seashells by the seashore. Even I'm having trouble with that one. Lots of S sounds. So yeah, have a go. Alliteration is fun. Tongue twisters are fun. Of course, in different languages, there's different types of alliteration and different words with different sounds to them. So yeah, I would say if you speak another language, look it up. Have a look. What's a famous alliteration poem in different, or tongue twister in a different language? Have a go, especially if you speak another language. It's quite fun, and then you can just see what it's like, not just English. Another thing that another literary feature in poems are syllables. And syllables is the amount of sounds that a word has. So, for example, a word with one sound or one syllable is fire. If you hear it's just one word, it's one sound, fire. A word with 2 syllables is rocket. If you sound it out, rock-et, so you've got 2 sounds. A word with 3 syllables is butterfly, butterfly, so you've got 3 there. And so on and so on. You can have up to 4, I think 5 is the maximum. I think onomatopoeia. Oh, onomatopoeia has 6 syllables. So yeah, work that one out. And syllables are quite fun to have in poems as well. Again, it gives a different feel to the words that people are saying. It gives a different feel to the rhythm, the rhyme, the poem itself. Might even give it a little tune, the way that it's said. Haikus are quite famous for using syllables in their sentences. They have 1 line of 5 syllables, 1 line of 7 syllables, and 1 line of 5 syllables again. And that's basically what haiku is. Because haikus, they originated from Japan. And this type of poem was created, I guess, as a kind of test of their skill. Not saying that it was a test of their skill, but maybe it was a way to test who could write a poem in as few words as possible, as few sounds as possible, and they created this style of poem just to see what poets could do and what they would write. And it's quite interesting to see. Rhythm is another literary feature. This is the sound of the words when they are said together at a certain pace or in a certain way. Now, you can hear the rhythm of words quite often in rap music or just music in general. You can hear how rappers say their words in a certain way, and this helps them to bring the rhythm to the song. Now, rhythm is also important in song in general, because you want to hear the song, you want to hear the tune, and they give way for a tune and music to be created in that way. Last one is the rhyme. Rhyming words, of course, when two different words sound similar to each other, but they are spelled differently or they have a different sound at the beginning. Maybe they have a similar sound at the end of the word. So you can have the rhyming words like rat, cat, and bat. So you have a different beginning sound, but the end of the words is at. And so you can rhyme them in a sentence. So put them at the end of your sentences and you have your rhyming words there. And this is a typical poem. Typical poems have lots of rhyming words like this, and they're often found in poems because that's what poems are, basically. They are rhyming sounds and words and different rhythms. Traditionally, they are the rhyming words that you use, especially when you do lyrical songs and lyrical poems and ballads, and you have limericks. These kind of poems all include rhyming words, and it's quite fun, especially when you read them out loud. They're good fun. So overall, I think that poets use all of these different types of writing techniques throughout their poems to present different things to the readers. They want to bring their writing to life, basically. And poems, they are interesting, they're fun, they're expressive, they're creative. They're a written form of expression, and they can either bring a smile to people's faces or they can bring them to tears and sadness. So it's a way of expressing themselves in a fun way, and also to help people understand maybe abstract things or understand things that are hard to put into words or to write about in a story, or people just want things to get told in a certain way. Overall, I think that poems are just a nice, creative, written literary piece. They show how creative we are as humans, and they show how we can manipulate language, how we can manipulate our words, and what we can do with our words. And they're just amazing pieces of literature. They can be listened to, said, and read in lots of ways. You can have them as a performance piece, you can sing them. Yeah, poems are really lovely, and I really do like them. So thank you to all the poets out there. Thank you to people who write their own poetry, who carry on writing their own stories and write their stories through their poems, is what I mean to say. Thank you very much for your hard work. And it just kind of shows how clever we are, how clever humans are, and how easy we can, use language in different and fun ways. Well, that's it for this podcast. I hope that you've enjoyed it. And if you'd like to listen to more, then like and subscribe to Hanaz Writers YouTube and Spotify channels. If you are interested in becoming a published author, then visit Hanaz Writers website and sign up. Thank you very much for listening, and until next time, bye!
If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, comment, and share. It really helps us out and keeps the content coming. Want to rock some awesome merch? Check out our online store, TikTok shop, or eBay page for exclusive Hanaz Writers gear. Do not forget to stay connected. Links to our social profiles can be found down below in the description. Got a brilliant idea you'd love to publish? We'd love to hear from you. Email us or visit our website at https://hanazwriters.org for all the details on how to get started. Thanks for watching and supporting Hanaz Writers. We hope to see you again soon.